Wednesday, big news Wednesdays, or at least weird news Wednesdays. I guess I want to confirm first off, big news is that J.R. Jackson will be back. So that's going to be awesome. So we got JR, we got a full show. We've got the latest on Matt Gaetz, some of what he did a few months ago that is totally what a perfectly innocent person would be doing. Trump weighs in on the whole thing for the first time. I predicted yesterday that the op-ed might lead him to do that. We'll see. So we have that. We have a lot. Tom Cotton being the absolute worst. Joe Manchin trying to fight to replace Tom Cotton as the absolute worst. And then Atlanta fighting back against the Georgia voting suppression bill. So we've got all that. We've got a lot here too, including the only thing that can stop a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun. Do they actually believe that? We're going to look into that briefly. Some good advocacy on the part of congressional progressives, and then a little bit of financial anti-billionaire schadenfreude. Donald Trump and his bid to increase his wealth at all costs while serving in government. Did it work out the way that he wanted it to? You can tell from the smile on my face that it did not. But anyway, before we jump into that, David says, anyone notice that it's always sunny when he does the early show? It's always like the exact amount of sun, the same exact amount of sun that comes in through that one window that's illuminating me. What's the freeze frame of John? I don't know. Someday I need to have someone do this pre-show for me so that I can watch it and get the experience from the other side. Lemmy Davis says, morning Dragon Squad, I got my J&J vaccine yesterday. Woke up with a slight fever and body aches, but overall side effects aren't too bad. I also claim the name Polyphonic Dragon. That's awesome. I will say, I mentioned that 2 days ago my wife got the vaccine, the Moderna, and she is having quite a bit of pain in her arm. So sometimes the side effects can be significant and annoying, but long-term beneficial. DDM Star says, good morning, Dragon Daddy and Dragon Squad. Well, good morning to you as well. Hello, everybody. Joe Willis says, going in for my second Moderna shot tomorrow. Can't wait to finally have better cell reception at my house. Hello, 5G. I love how everyone has turned that around. Anyway, for the nearly 1,000 of you that are already here, please hit the like button if you haven't already, as we launch into our first story, which I think is going to be this. So, getting Biden was never going to be the best thing ever, a solution to all of our problems, a dream come true for progressives, obviously. But there were a few areas where I think it would be reasonable to have assumed, and we did assume, that he would be a sharp about face from Trump. There have been plenty of things where that is the case. But one, when it comes to Yemen, it has not been nearly what it should have been. Even what he claimed during the campaign he would represent as president. Now, he did 1.5 months ago, about 6 weeks ago, he did end U.S. support for offensive operations by Saudi Arabia in that conflict, but that is hardly a solution to all of our problems. The death, the suffering, all of that in Yemen, sure, a lot of that is a result of the offensive operations of Saudi Arabia, but that's not all. They need aid. And it's difficult to give them aid when Saudi Arabia is blockading the entire country. That in of itself, while not being classified as offensive, except obviously from the point of view of the people who are not getting food and water and medicine and all of that in the midst of a global pandemic and a multi-year famine, certainly causes some suffering. And so far, not only is Biden not coming out strong against the blockade, and remember, we have quite a bit of leverage over Saudi Arabia, considering how much they spend on our weapons and all of that. They desperately need the parts and the technical assistance, all of that, to keep all of our weapons operating inside of their country. He hasn't even really commented on it. What is his stance on the blockade? I honestly couldn't tell you at this point. But thankfully, progressives have been talking about this. This is not one of the things that, I mean, I guess it's hard to evaluate centrists, at least, because there's the fear that, switching over from Trump to Biden, some topics that were big topics of conversation could suddenly fall by the wayside. But Yemen was really not anything, there was never a time where people were really talking about it as much as it merited. In any event, good progressives are. And in particular, Ro Khanna, who, I can't tell you how many times I've had him on the show to talk about Yemen. He and nearly 80 other House Democrats are urging Joe Biden to finally come out strong against the blockade and cut off U.S. support for this war on Yemen, not only in the most explicit, there's a plane in the sky firing missiles, dropping bombs sort of way, but literally stop the suffering, stop the needless death, especially of children. And so they are pushing for that. They wrote a letter saying the Saudi blockade has long been a leading driver of Yemen's humanitarian catastrophe, triggering recent fuel shortages, inflation, and greatly reducing access to food, water, electricity, and transportation. Rokana says, I don't think that they have been sufficiently attuned to the fundamental shift that members of Congress of both parties want in the U.S.-Saudi relationship. They're still stuck in an old paradigm where they're not willing to take the corrective, effective steps. And I think that's pretty clear. But Joe Biden has been around for forever. He still thinks of these allies from a, aughts point of view, maybe a 90s point of view, and expects that the American people are just going to be fine with that. I mean, look, it was weird back then. Needless. Caused chaos and instability and all of that back then. But now, nobody's interested in that. No regular person anyway. Nobody who's not making huge amounts of money delivering weapons to the Saudis. Anyway, they're doing some good work. Ilhan Omar has been focusing on this quite a bit, especially the death toll amongst children, and so that's what you need to see. But while that's a good thing to have, our congressional leaders, I should say, not leaders technically, but certainly leaders in terms of actually advocating for progressive values, we need to make it a topic of conversation. We need to put pressure on them too. We need to provide that. And so hopefully we can do that. Maybe I should talk to Representative Khan to come back on and talk about this effort. That's a good idea. I'm going to do that. Okay, we've got another story, a little bit of weird schadenfreude here as well in a second. Jess freaking Ortega says, are you in an older building there at TYT, or is it a new build? I've always wondered because of the cinder blocks behind you. No, this is, I don't know how old the building is, but this is a building that we've been in for years, 5 years, I don't know. We've had multiple studios during my time at TYT, but that's like a decorative thing, like a little curving wall that we've got offices built off of. But we've been here for quite a while, it's not new. It's gradually changed over time. There used to be a gigantic bar behind me. Shay Plain Spotted Dragon says, I got a really sore arm after my first Moderna shot. I'm getting my second on Monday. If that is the worst of it, I will be happy. And I will be happy for you. And even happier if you don't have to deal with the worst of it. Zane says, Moderna arm pain suck, John. I hurt for 2 days. Well, okay, so I'm glad that you're past it. And if it is just 2 days, then maybe my wife will soon get some relief. YT Prenude said, or YTP Renewed. You're going to have to tell me which it is. It says, build more solar until we can boycott Saudi oil. Yeah, I'm sure there's more to it. I'm not an expert. Just fucking build the capacity. Build massive battery facilities. Build massive fields of solar and wind. Distribute it. You can't do it everywhere, necessarily. But how about we just start doing it? And then once we've had too much, then we'll stop. That's how we've treated our military for decades and decades and decades. Just keep buying planes and missiles and bombs and bullets, and we'll see. Why don't we do that with this? How much more secure would we be? Frustrating. Saren says, just got my second Pfizer shot. That's awesome, Saren. Glad to hear that. Lucas says, I finally realized what Matt Gaetz reminded me of. John, if you aren't familiar with it, please look up what Max Payne looked like in the first game. I know what you're talking about. And actually, some of the early screenshots, yeah, I can see that. Brian says, just got first dose of Moderna this morning. Well, Brian, good luck to your arm. Greg says, it's been a month since I got second shot. I haven't noticed any changes to my DNA yet, hoping for X-ray vision, but I'll settle for invisibility. Invisibility is effectively everyone else having perfect see-through vision. Trisha Briggs says, getting my first dose tomorrow. Can't wait till all of you at TYT get yours too. Thank you. A few people. So normally, the only other person that's in the studio is Bart. He's gotten his first vaccine. Occasionally, Edwin, he's gotten his first vaccine. I don't think that either Anna or Jank have, and I haven't either. But I'm hoping that within the next 2 weeks, I can at least get an appointment. Ryan says, do you think we could lose petrodollar if we challenge Saudi on their humanitarian crimes? How do you think it would play out? Well, look, if we took the advice of the previous super chatter, we could prepare for that, spend a couple of years building massive solar and wind capacity, and then who cares? Yeah, there's consequences of expecting anything of other countries. What are we so rich and so powerful and so influential for if we can't even stop some of the mass executions? Even here. My Money in the Building says, I had a really dope writing workshop yesterday in my class. It enriched my soul. I know you can appreciate that sentiment, John. That does sound awesome. I've been writing a little bit. I took like a month where I wasn't really doing much because of something that I'll announce soon. But I've recently been writing again. Not much, but it feels good. Every time a session ends, I feel a little bit better for having gotten it done. I wonder if it's anything that I'll ever release. It's weird, and most of you probably won't like it. Nina Canadian said, just got done watching Benjamin Dixon's Like It or Not. TRT introduces me to great independent media. That's awesome. Yeah, and look, I'm obviously glad that I get to introduce all of you to these people, but I'm also glad that I get to meet them and get to know them. Benjamin Dixon's awesome. Miss Blue from Lower Sioux says, good morning, John. Got vaccinated and jumped on an Amtrak from Minnesota to Seattle. Wow, didn't realize this is a morning show. It is, at least on the Pacific, yeah. D-Rocky says, giving a little extra today since I got my stimmy last night and getting my first vaccine shot this afternoon. TYT, TDR, and all you dragons helped me get me through this craziness. D-Rocky, thank you. Thank you to all of you. You know what? Let me give you something. Let me give you a story. So, we've heard for a very long time that you need guns. And if you're scared of guns, then you need guns even more. And the more guns there are, the more guns you should buy, which is more guns to be scared of. So you're probably going to need to buy some more guns. That is what will keep you safe after all. It doesn't matter how many guns are out there as long as you have guns. Because bad guys with guns get stopped by good guys with guns. That's just how it works. Or does it? Because apparently over the last few years, the NRA chief, Wayne LaPierre, says he's been so scared for his safety after mass shootings that he's taken refuge aboard a friend's luxury yacht. Now, Wayne LaPierre is 50% by volume gun at this point. He's got guns all around him. He's got security with guns. And yet, he felt there's so many dangerous guns out there and crazy people getting easy access to guns that I need to take to the high seas. I need to get on a fancy-ass yacht and get away from all you crazies who have done what I've been telling you to do. I've been telling you, get guns, everyone. Don't stop anyone from getting guns. The crazier and more violent, they should get guns. They've been threatening people. They've been committing domestic abuse. They should be getting, everyone should just have more guns. Oh my God, there's a lot of guns out here. I'm gonna get on the yacht for a while. I'm gonna take sail. He says, they simply let me use it as a security retreat because they knew the threat that I was under. And I was basically under presidential threat without presidential security in terms of the number of threats I was getting. And all of us were struggling with how to deal with that type of situation, with a private citizen, with the amount of threat that we were having. And this was the one place that I hope could feel safe, where I remember getting them going, thank God I'm safe. Nobody can get me here. And that's how it's happened. That's why I used it. Okay, but you don't need any of that because you've got guns, right? Right? What about everybody else that's afraid of mass shootings? After all, he's conflating two things there. He's saying mass shootings are terrifying him, and then he's saying, I'm getting personal threats. Well, which is it? Okay, because if you're getting personal threats, okay, flee the country or whatever. But if it's just mass shootings, if it's just gun violence, okay, it's very convenient for you to be able to get on a boat, even though this isn't targeted. But even if it were, what about everybody else? Look at that. Decades of him telling us to all buy guns and just flood every corner of the country with guns. And now he gets to get on a ship. But we don't get to get on a ship. How often are the incredibly wealthy targeted in these mass shootings? It's regular people that end up getting shot. Yet he gets to flee. There's a lot of other quotes. He sounds like a crazy person, basically, which I'm sure he is. By the way, the ship is named Illusions, which is just, couldn't wish for anything better than that. This guy whose entire life has been built on these insane nightmares of leather masked cultists coming for me in the night. I need rifles. They're all living illusions. Their life is at risk. But ain't shit that guns are gonna stop. What you put in your body, that is the most likely chance of killing you, thanks to cardiovascular disease, heart, cancer, diabetes, all of that. Pollution, car accidents. Guns are not going to save you from these things. You can shoot smog all you want, and I have. It doesn't actually help you. He's 2 water scooters on the yacht, 3 a crew, including a cook. Isn't that nice? Isn't that nice? My suggestion would be, pretty standard progressive thing, don't make your effect on the country, your advocacy, your political action, producing a world that is such a dystopia that you have to flee. Whether you flee to a private yacht or behind the walls of a gated community, don't make that world. Make a better world where maybe you will have a little bit less pointless wealth that won't change your life, but you can go places and you won't be scared of being killed by bandits and cannibals. Do that. You will be happier. I'm very confident in saying that. I'm not wealthy, so it's a bit of speculation. I've never lived that life. But I have a feeling you'll be healthier, more secure, happier with that life. You're terrified of the inner city? Produce a better inner city. Don't advocate for economic policies, housing policies, education policies, and all of that just strips people down to the bone, that drains every cent out of them. On the other hand, considering all of the damage that he's done, him sitting terrified with a gun across his knees on a private yacht, sure, it sounds nice, but how happy can he be? So that makes me feel a little bit better. And I can afford to, because I'm not one of the people that's done any of this damage to the country, at the very least. Anywho, okay, let's see. Tahira says, I had 2 Pfizer vaccines without any side effects, not even a sore arm. I was lucky. The shingles vaccine was miserable in comparison. Glad to see that you got through it easy. Mark Jackson said, did you write about the Lorax, John? No, not in this one. But it is about animals. T. Underhill, thank you. It doesn't give me your message, but thank you for the super chat. I do appreciate that. Psycho says, got my first Pfizer shot yesterday. Feeling tired. I claim pronounced Psycho Dragon. Okay, Sicko Dragon. No, I'm kidding. Hey, everybody. We are on the precipice of hitting 1,000 likes. If you have time, even just a few seconds will do, feel free to hit the like button. Main Money into Building says, I would totally exchange work with you as long as we promise to give constructive, respectful, and useful commentary. Well, I am actually part of a writing group, and we do that. Not always. Sometimes it hurts, but it is useful. It is helpful. Chase Essex says, TYT should have Dave Anthony and Gareth Reynolds from the history comedy podcast The Dollop on the show sometimes. They're progressive and hilarious. That sounds good, actually. Brian says, maybe Oprah should have been giving arsenals rather than cars. You get an RPG and you get an RPG. T. Underhill says, got my first dose of the Moderna vaccine on Sunday. Took a good 2 days for the muscle soreness in my left deltoid to go away. I can now lift my left arm above my shoulder without pain. Yay. That actually sounds a lot like the experience my wife is undergoing right now. Mama Bear Dragon says, I'm torn about getting a gun for the house. Didn't feel safe in GA, but guns at home make you statistically less safe, especially with kids. Yes, that is 100% true. Kelly Quigley says, I'm a Tier 3 member, current until the 18th. I don't have a baby dragon, and I should have a baby dragon and don't. Help me, please. So it doesn't list you as being a member. Are you sure that you're, I guess you must be logged in for your name to be there, but your name isn't green. I'm not sure about that. There's got to be some sort of YouTube support or something like that. The issue is that while we have membership, we don't have any sort of fine-grained control over it. Like, I can't influence anyone's membership or anything like that. But I will hopefully look into that. I'm sure that'd be very frustrating. But whether we can see it or not, Kelly Quigley, I see you. Max says, leather mask people coming in the night. John, you might want to change that statement. I'm going to stick with it. Lynn says, hey, John, should I get a concealed carry license? What do you think? My son is really pushing it. No. I mean, you can, sure. But just remember, having a gun around makes you less safe, not more safe. The mitochondria is the powerhouse of the dragon says, GM Squad, Tennessee legislature is voting tomorrow on HJR 0350 and HJR 0351, bills to literally congratulate Candace Owens and Tommy Lauren on moving here. Gotta love living in a red state. Excuse me while I vomit. This is what our government does, or at least this is what Republican government is for. Less is Sweet, welcome to Tier 1 YouTube membership. Thank you for being there. Hopefully you have your egg. Zane says Jesse Dolan Moore is a great commentator. Reach out. These are great suggestions, people. I really do appreciate them. And thank you to everybody who's become a member. As of yesterday, we've got a new Ida emoji and a new Vivian emoji as of last week. Okay, so how about our title story? Because we are probably we're getting close there. Okay, so Donald Trump cares about being wealthy. It is possible that that is the only thing he cares about, certainly the thing he cares about the most. And virtually everything he's done in his life has been designed to make himself more money. Now, that does not mean that he is good at it or that he knows what he's doing. And the sort of weird curse of Donald Trump's life is that he'll be rich, sure. He was born rich. People who are born rich are almost always rich when they get older. But him being involved in it at virtually every turn has made him less rich. But he wants people to know he's rich. So he wants to be rich and he wants to be known for being rich. But what if those two didn't actually work alongside each other? They didn't actually accomplish the same goal. I mean, after all, he was born into wealth. He was given a huge sum of money. And as many of you are probably aware, if he had just taken the money and invested in the stock market, maybe got himself a financial manager and just left it there, with the average rate of return of the stock market over the course of his life, he would have more money now than if he'd done what he did. All of the businesses, the real estate, the steaks, the vodka, the planes, the university, the government, all of it. He would have had more money. If he just wanted to be wealthy, he could have gotten it. But he wanted to be known to be wealthy, so he has less of it. So you're all familiar with that. There's a newer version of that. And that is that when he decided he wanted to be president, after all, he wanted to be president because he wanted people to clap for him, and also because he saw a great opportunity to make a bunch of money there, he had an option. Going into his presidency, he could divest himself of all of his assets, blind trust and all that. He's not involved in it. He and his family don't make any of the decisions. It just goes there. It would have been sort of like what he could have done when he was first given the $250 million or whatever. Just put it in the stock market, don't be involved. But he didn't want to do that. He wanted the control. He wanted to be able to do things to make himself more money. And so he spent 4 years doing that. And it was an incredibly corrupt presidency. Both more corrupt and more transparently corrupt than any past presidency. And it's important that we acknowledge both of those because both are true. He did everything he could to bilk the taxpayer, to pay for rooms in his hotels. He accepted money from foreign sources, domestic sources, raised huge sums of money off of corporations, off of his fans. And that is going to continue because he's going to start doing those rallies again. And I guarantee there will be a ticket price now. So he did all of that, kept doing businesses. Like his business kept running. He kept trying to make deals here in the US and abroad. So we had, again, like when he was born, two options. Just put it to the side or be involved. And look, he has made himself a bunch of money from the corruption. We know that. We know how much money he made off of, how much taxpayers subsidized, which is effectively money made for his golf trips, how much he got in terms of rooms for his clubs and things like that. But he also took a lot of damage. And that damage to his brand name, his reputation, his businesses, his real estate, that has been significant and not always as obvious. And so what's the actual effect after multiple years? Well, we've got some numbers. This is according to analysis by Forbes. From the time he entered the White House in January 2017 to his departure a few months ago, and realize that misses the whole campaign. So this is actually understating the effect. Donald Trump's fortune fell by nearly a third, from $3.5 billion to $2.4 billion. To put another way, if he had sold everything on day one, paid the maximum capital gains taxes on the sales, which he wouldn't have, so again, this is understating it, then put the proceeds into a conflict-free fund tracking the S&P 500, sort of just the actual overall effect of the stock market and growth over time, Trump would have ended his presidency an estimated $1.6 billion richer than he is today. Now look, How he lost that $1.6 billion is complex. A lot of it is just him being in the public eye. His real estate has become less valuable, but again, he could have sold it. He could have sold Trump Tower, and whether it was damaged or not by all of the nonsense he got up to over the last 4 years, it wouldn't have been on him anymore. And so, as when he was younger, he had the choice between these two things, direct control and notoriety and all of that, with his hunger to get as much money as possible, to be as wealthy as possible. And always, 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 he chooses the wrong way. He chooses to back Donald Trump. And that is a terrible investment. It has been a terrible investment his entire life. Now, it's not so terrible that he's going to end up, begging for money on the street. He's wealthy in America. And if you're wealthy in America, you can't fail. You just can't. But you can do worse than other people. You can do worse than the average on the stock market. It is entirely possible that people watching this, who have some stocks or something like that, maybe a 401k, got a better return on their investment than the President of the United States, with all the the behind the scenes information, ability to manipulate how the stock market works by announcing things, and we've seen that. And he did worse. What a sad little baby. Just give the money up, man. You can be wealthy for the rest of your life. Wealthier for the rest of your life. But he wanted to be involved because he thinks he knows better. Now, the issue with Trump isn't just that millions of Americans think that he's a good businessman. It's that he thinks he's a good businessman. Nathan Anna says, Tharagavurig Dragon here. Just got my first Pfizer shot. Woohoo! Glad to hear it. Glad to hear it. Days Falling Down says, where are you with the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, John? I'm loving it so far. I'm caught up. I'm liking it so far. I think it's fine. I'm liking Winter Soldier more than I thought I would. I was never really into him in the movies. He's good in this, and I like Falcon. He's genuinely just a guy that's very likable. I'm not liking it as much as I was liking WandaVision, though. It's just less intriguing, but it is interesting. I think that the Zemo stuff is cool. And by the way, I just got my delivery of the Kickstarter for the board game Marvel United, and so I'm excited to use all of these people now. So anyway, I am liking it. I am liking it, and I have every intention of watching it. I'm gonna watch Loki. I liked that trailer. I don't even like Loki as a character, but I'm gonna watch it. I'm very excited for Black Widow, mostly because Florence Pugh's the best. But Lynn Brown says, my mother and I live together and are older, just the two of us, so I seem to be the protector. I was just wondering what you and the squad thought. It's totally, there's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with it. At some point, I might end up living with my mom again. She might move in. You never know, and I wouldn't have a problem with that. Family's good. It is. And we've produced a country where people can't be as free and independent as they used to be, especially after the pandemic. Sydney Downing, thank you for your super chat. Appreciate that. A brave, nuanced world. First of all, I love your name. Second of all, welcome to Tier 1 YouTube membership. If you haven't seen... Sophie's letting me know that I gotta go. Okay, so I'm gonna leave in a second. But really fast, if you didn't know, top 10 list for this week. It's already up for our Tier 2 and Tier 3 members. Francesca and I did it. The top 10 foods that contributed to pandemic weight gain. That was a fun one. Last week's was great, too. You gotta watch that. Anyway, I gotta run. I will see you soon.